Yeah, I can think back to the earliest times. I'm just a little kid playing in the basement, and my mother is playing Mozart, Beethoven. She insists on playing great classic music for us, and I'm growing up playing, listening to this kind of music. And of course, you know, a couple of hours later, I'm in my sister's room and she's playing whatever, Chuck Berry or something like that. And then my friends are listening to the radio, and so there's hits of the day being played like that. So I just remember hearing all that music at the same time and not making any barriers between them. In other words, I didn't think it was necessary to have words to enjoy it, because I had these great experiences listening to the classical music, and then later on listening to all the jazz music, most of which was instrumental as well. And so, you know, as a kid, when you see, when somebody presents you with something and they go, well, listen to this piece of music, it's been around for 200 years and billions of people love it, and it's official, it's like the real stuff, you know. And then you see that with a shorter time scale, but you see that with the music of the day or jazz music or stuff like that, you realize, well, this is credible music, there's nothing lacking, you know. And so specifically, it didn't bother me that there wasn't singing. But I still was just a rock and roll kid, so of course I love songs by Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, because they were singing, and because they were singing to my generation, you know, in that particular odd way. So, and probably because it maybe annoyed my parents or confused them. But all of it played in the house, so I think that that was my foundation. And I think they must have noticed it, because I seem to remember getting records from like an uncle or another relation that was all instrumental. And it must have been because, you know, my parents said, boy, you know, for some reason Joe really likes music and he doesn't care if they're singing. And so somebody gets excited to see if they can, you know, put a smile on my face. And I remember there was a record called Persuasive Percussion, which at the time I thought was the goofiest title that a grown-up would ever come up with. But it was a cool album cover, all black and white, I think, and graphically just a bunch of circles and half circles and stuff. But what kind of music was it? I can barely remember what it was, but it was a lighter blend of maybe jazz and Afro-Cuban and modern cocktail music of the time, whatever the fusions they were trying out in the mid-60s. That was one of the first instrumental records that I ever was fascinated with, from top to bottom. And then I think there was an artist, Ahmad Jamal, piano player. And I had no choice in this. This is, you know, I'm not a record buyer. I'm just a stupid little kid. And someone says, hey, come here, listen to this, and you can have this record if you want. So I said, oh, great. So I would listen to these things. This is all before, you know, Hendrix and the Stones and all that kind of stuff. And it had nothing to do with my social scene, which was, there wasn't one at that age. I think the influences that I've had on the positive side, really good. Like I can always sort of slip back into a real complete mental and emotional memory of watching my parents enjoy music, jazz music, having parties, dancing, my older siblings listening to early rock and roll, Motown, British Invasion, the beginning of rock, all that stuff, watching my brother play blues harmonica, watching my sister perform as a folk guitarist. Those are things that become what you consider benchmarks of quality of experience, you know what I mean? So I think back, well, it's got to be as good as when I saw my parents listening to Miles Davis and recognizing and getting off on it, or watching my sisters and their boyfriends go crazy for the Stones or the Dave Clark Five or the Beatles or something, or my brother playing harmonica over John Lee Hooker records or something, you know, and or you know, when they would they'd get a thrill out of bringing like Hendrix and Who records over and playing them for me and see, like an experiment. Let's see what it does to the little kid when he listens to Electric Ladyland, you know. And so I remember those as great moments because I experienced them as a fan, I guess, you know what I mean? As a normal person, not a guitar player. And I always think, well, that's what you want to create in your audience. You have to give them something special. It can't be cookie cutter stuff, you know. And I think on the negative side, you remember when somebody leveled comments at you and you knew from the beginning that they were wrong and that you were never going to let it bother you or let people like them bother you or let comments like that bother you because they come from the same place, which is a bad place. Serves no purpose, not going to help you at all, right? And yeah, for every good road ahead of you, there's a bad one right next to it. So you have to be careful of that. And sometimes they're subtle. Obviously it's not a physical road, but it could just be a comment, a look, or a suggestion, but you can't let it wiggle its way into your brain, you know.